Coming up on today's Locked On Dodgers, Andre Ethier makes the Hall of Fame ballot and other former Dodger candidates on the ballot. And the Dodgers were officially linked to Mitch Haniger. So we'll get into a little bit about that. That's what tap. So make sure to keep it Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. This is a daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers and subscribe in both of those places, and you'll never miss a day because you know we're not going to. If this is your first time listening or watching, I'm Vince Samperio, and I'm usually joined by co-host Jeff Snider. Our schedules didn't work out. This episode's coming to you a little bit later than normal and maybe a little bit shorter than normal. But we didn't want to miss a day, even though we both had things that ended up coming up and making it a little bit difficult for this episode to come. But we're here for you. We're both lifelong Dodger fans that have spent time covering the Dodgers and continue to cover the Dodgers in a few ways. One of those ways being this podcast here that we bring to you every Monday through Friday, bringing you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue and bringing you all the talk about the Dodgers. That's what we're going to do today. We got the new Hall of Fame ballot, and there was not really any names that are probably Hall of Fame worthy. There's a few guys on the current that were coming back on the ballot that might get close to the 75% needed. The biggest name that was new relating to the Dodgers was Andre Ethier. Andre Ethier was uh, obviously a Dodger for a long time. Other names on there that you might recognize: Francisco Rodriguez, Carlos Beltran, Matt Cain, John Lackey, R.A. Dickey, Jared Weaver, Bronson Arroyo, I guess technically a former Dodger, Jacoby Ellsbury, Mike Napoli, Johnny Peralta, J.J. Hardy, Jason Worth, and Houston Street. But the one we're going to talk about is Andre Ethier. We got a question from a listener about Andre Ethier and kind of his Hall of Fame credentials, and just kind of seeing where he would stack up. And honestly, first things first is Andre Ethier is not a candidate to be in the Hall of Fame. If anything, we what we would talk about is he even a candidate to get the 5% to remain on the ballot, and even that is probably a long shot at this point. It's not, well, I guess there's a chance because there's not as many names this year. So in theory, if you wanted to vote for your 10 people, if you're a Hall of Fame voter, you could throw Andre Ethier in there, but realistically it wouldn't matter. He's not going to be a Hall of Famer. I doubt he gets above the 5% this year, but we can look at why and kind of compare him and see what it would have taken for him to be a Hall of Famer. And realistically, what it would have taken for him to be a Hall of Famer was for him to have about 5 or 6 seasons like his 2009 season. The 2009 season, he OPS 869, 31 homers, 42 doubles, 106 RBIs, 132 OPS plus. So it was 32% better than the rest of the league at hitting. He finished sixth in MVP voting that year, was a Silver Slugger. And yeah, that's what it would have took. Andre Ethier's credentials are two-time All-Star, a one-time Gold Glove winner, which I don't know how that happened, one-time Silver Slugger, and was Rookie of the Year, finished fifth in his rookie season in 2006, finished sixth in MVP voting in 2009. That's the majority of what he had and what he brought to the table. While he was a fine player for the Dodgers, and we remember him and love him, especially for the year he had the 6 walk-off hits, Captain Clutch. We remember him, his hand up with the number 16 rounding the bases. That's one of the images instilled in probably most of our minds. But you just have to go look at the Hall, Baseball Reference has Hall of Fame like comparisons or number comparisons, in regards to Hall of Fame. And for right field, this is what they have on there. For an average Hall of Fame right fielder, there's 28 currently in the Hall of Fame. Their career WAR is 71.1. That's average. Andre Ethier's 21.5 for a 7-year peak. So, at your best 7 seasons combined in a row, 42.4 WAR, Andre Ethier 18.8. And then your WAR over 162 games, the average for Hall of Famer 5.1, Andre Ethier 2.4. So, yeah, Hall of Fame standards. They have a statistic of Hall of Fame standards, which the average Hall of Famer is around 50 in this category for batting. Andre Ethier is at 18. There's a Hall of Fame monitor, where if you're likely Hall of Famer, you're at 100. Andre Ethier is at 21. And then for a Hall of Fame, well, those are yeah. And then another Hall of Fame statistic called Great Ink. Average Hall of Famer is 144. Andre Ethier's 12. So yeah, realistically, Andre Ethier not really close to being a Hall of Famer. But the question we can kind of talk about is if he deserves to be in the future part of the Dodgers. The put up on the wall. Should his number be retired? Probably not, since he's not going to be a Hall of Famer. But should he have something to honor him at Dodger Stadium in the future? He was with the team 12 years. 162 home runs, batted 285 in his career, 822 OPS, 300 doubles. I mean, he was a solid player for the Dodgers. And while he had those couple weird years where toward the end of his career, he was hurt and he was only playing against righties, but you think about the 2017 World Series, and he was the only one with an RBI in Game 7. So, he has these little moments and little pockets in Dodger history, Dodger lore. Um, I'm sure that one day he may be honored for that, and he continues to be part of the Dodger family. You see him on Sportsnet sometimes. You see him around the team. You see him in spring training. So there's a chance that Andre Ethier could be honored by the Dodgers at some point, but he will not be honored by the Hall of Fame committee because he does not have the numbers to be a Hall of Famer. So, yeah, that's that for Andre Ethier. Like I said, I don't even think he'll remain on the ballot after this year, but I don't expect a lot of the players that were new to this ballot to remain after this year. If you remember, there's the guys closest in terms of the rest of the baseball world. Scott Rowland had 63% of the votes last year. He needs 75% to get in. Todd Helton was at 52%. Billy Wagner at 51%. There's a chance that none of them get in. One of them get in. I'd say for sure Scott Rowland probably gets in. They might make Todd Helton and Billy Wagner wait another year and see, whatever the case is. Wagner is coming up on his 8 out of 10 years, so he needs to happen soon. Rowland's on his 6 out of 10. Helton's on his 5th. But yeah, I mean, if anything, this is the year where those three guys could pick up a bunch of votes because there's not a lot of people taking up votes, and those are really the only guys that have a legitimate chance. Now, there's guys on there, Alex Rodriguez and Manny Ramirez, who probably have the numbers for Hall of Fame, but they have the steroid attachment to them. Both of them were suspended for performance enhancing drugs. So realistically, they're probably not going to make it because if Barry Bonds didn't make it and Roger Clemens didn't make it, then realistically those two aren't going to make it because their numbers weren't as good. Or A-Rod can compete, but yeah, not going to happen. Another former Dodger on there who's on his last ballot, Jeff Kent. We all remember Jeff Kent, big time second baseman, played with the Giants, played with the Dodgers. He had 32% of the vote last year. I don't know if he gets that much. Another former Dodger, Gary Sheffield, got 40% of the vote last year. This is his 9th year of eligibility. He could get a significant bump. And, when you look at his numbers deeper, he does have a chance to kind of put himself out there and get that. And realistically, I don't know if he'll get there, but he has a chance to at least make a big jump this year. Other people on the can are on there with Dodger ties: Jimmy Rollins, Bobby Abreu. Both got under 10% last year, so they might get a slight bump, but I don't think any of them are going to make a big leap that kind of pushes them into real legitimate Hall of Fame conversation. So that's all the Hall of Fame talk. We're going to get into some talk about Mitch Haniger. We talked a little bit about him the other day, but now he's been officially linked to the Dodgers. So we're going to see what he looks like and what that looks like if the Dodgers do go after him. So that's what's on tap for the next part of the episode. First, let's talk about BetOnline because BetOnline is sponsoring this episode. This episode is sponsored by BetOnline. And they're your number one source for your sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. They got all the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer to esports. They've got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, they also have those on BetOnline as well. They're the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. So go to betonline.net on your laptop or mobile device to check it all out. Check out the odds, check out the trends, check out the action. Check it all out right there at betonline.net. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so Mitch Haniger officially linked to the Dodgers, and it makes sense. He was a player that was good for a few years, struggled a little bit, and had injury this past season. But even then, he has never OPS'd under 700 in his career. Now he's missed some time with injuries, and he's had his struggles here and there, but he's 1 year removed from a season with 39 home runs and 100 RBI, an OPS of 804, an OPS plus of 122. That was in 2021. He played 157 games for the Seattle Mariners, 23 doubles, 39 home runs, 100 RBI. Finished 20th in MVP voting that year. Previously, his best year before that was 2018, where he finished 11th in MVP voting and was named an All-Star. That year, he OPS'd 859 with a 139 OPS plus, 26 homers, 93 RBIs, 38 doubles. That was 2018. So he struggled in 2019, also had some injuries, but still, like I said, an OPS of 778. And even this past year when he had injuries and wasn't playing as well, he still had an OPS of 736 and an OPS plus of 114. So other than his rookie year where he only played 34 games for the Diamondbacks, where he had an OPS of 713 and an OPS plus of 83, he's been pretty much an above average hitter his entire career. And that's something the Dodgers could use. Now he's 31 years old, coming off injury, coming off a little bit of a tough season. He's not going to command too much, and this is the part where I've said it before. The Dodgers could get outbid for him just for the simple fact that the Dodgers aren't desperate for him. So, if a team wants to throw him a multi-year contract for, in the 15 to 18 or 15 to $20 million a year range, the Dodgers aren't going to get in on that. But what the Dodgers will get in on is probably, a 1 or 2 year deal, maybe a 3 year deal, maybe in like the $15 million range. They could get on board with that, and they could, add somebody that could help him out. Now, he's played right field most of his career. But has had some time in center and a little bit of time in left. Realistically, on this Dodger team, he'd probably have to play left field, just for the simple fact that Mookie Betts is in right field. So now I guess it could happen where if Mookie has to move to center because the Dodgers don't end up getting a legitimate center fielder, then Haniger could play right field. But realistically, Haniger would come and have to kind of learn left field or reconfigure himself to be a left fielder. But what does he do well? Well, he hits the ball fairly well. Uh, right-handed bat. He doesn't go the other way that often. He's a kind of a main pull hitter, but he's a guy that you can stick at pretty much any part of your lineup, and he could do very well. And with the Mariners, he wasn't like the focal point. Well, I mean, he might have been the focal point, but at the time, the Mariners weren't that good for some of those seasons, and he was just kind of that guy that was there for them. Um, but realistically, with the Dodgers, I mean, he's not going to probably be in the top 5 or 6 of the lineup unless they bat him second because they need somebody up there to if they don't replace the shortstop. But you look at it, and at the very least, he could be a guy that hits against lefties or that plays against lefties. In his career, he has an 853 OPS against lefties. He's not that bad against righties though, 795. So he's the splits aren't a big difference. He can obviously he hits lefties a little bit better, but he's hit righties just fine his entire career. So he's a guy that if you sign, you can just stick him out there and hope that without injury, hope that he plays every single day. And for the Dodgers, that's something that's beneficial. We talked, AJ Pollock's been mentioned and other guys have been mentioned, and when I kind of took the deeper look into Mitch Haniger and what he can do and what he brings to the table, it makes a lot of sense for the Dodgers if this is the route they want to go. A little bit cheaper. We talked about Brandon Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo's for sure going to command about 20 million a year for probably 5 or 6 years. Like I said, Mitch Haniger, there's a few ways he can go about it. They could even maybe steal Mitch Haniger on a 1 year deal for relatively cheap, and because he wants to build his value and get back onto the free agent market as a 32-year-old. That's very possible, or 33. I think he turns 32. Yeah, he turns 32 in December. So, but um, he's a guy that could very much be looking to up his value. And what do the Dodgers do best? They take guys and up their value. Back to the splits of righty lefty. You look at his 2021 season when he had the 39 homers, 100 RBIs. He was significantly better against lefties that year. He had a 921 OPS against left-handed pitching, with 16 of his home runs coming in just 203 at bats. He hit decent against righties, 747 OPS, 23 of his home runs coming, but those were in 400 at bats. So in half as many at bats, he hit 16 home runs compared to 23. So he could be that lefty masher the Dodgers looking for. Now, in a perfect world, it could have been Mitch Haniger and Jock Peterson as like a tandem. That because Jock Peterson's the guy you think of when you need a righty masher, but Jock Peterson's staying in the Bay Area. But like I said, Mitch Haniger is a guy young enough, coming off injury, coming off a down season, cheap enough. The Dodgers could go after him and could benefit pretty greatly from it. Now, realistically, I do think that Mitch Haniger could probably sign a multi-year deal for a little bit, a cheaper, a team like the Brewers. I don't think they need outfield help at the moment, or maybe they do, but just a team like the Brewers in general, a team that's going to be competitive, can't compete with the likes of the Dodgers. They're not going to go spend 30, 40 million a year on a guy like Aaron Judge, but they could spend, 15 or so million on a guy like Mitch Haniger that brings value. And, you take a little bit of a risk because he has had injuries, although some of his injuries have been a little flukish. He's not like he's a guy with a bunch of, hamstrings or whatever. He's a guy that he had the ruptured testicle that we mentioned yesterday. He's had a little bit of a rough go of it. So in the end, Mitch Haniger is the guy that the Dodgers should go after. And if they can get him for less than 3 years for, 15 to $18 million range, I think it's possible. And when you think about it, it's like, okay, well, if they're going to pay 18 million for Mitch Haniger, they could have just paid the 18 million for Cody Bellinger and had, a little bit better defender and a guy that can play center field. Yeah, you can think of it that way. Although, like I said, Mitch Haniger's had much better numbers the last 3 seasons than Cody Bellinger. He's just played a little bit less, or no, he didn't play 2020 at all. So he's played less, but he's had much better numbers. Just the numbers. Cody Bellinger's had about 40 something home runs the last 3 seasons. Mitch Haniger had 39 in 2021. And even last year, if you consider him struggled and not that good, he still had, way better numbers than Cody Bellinger had and was still an above average hitter. So Mitch Haniger in the outfield, something I can see the Dodgers getting down for. They're going to have some competition, but someone they could go after. So yeah, Dodgers consider Mitch Haniger. It might work out. I like it. I like it. So we're going to go on. We're going to talk about one more outfielder. But before, let's talk about Locked On Sports Today, because first of all, you need to listen to Locked On Dodgers as your first listen every day. But Locked On Sports Today can be your second listen of the day every day. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. All right, so we talked about Mitch Haniger. We talked about different outfielders out there, and there's a couple other names that we maybe could talk about in the outfield, and we'll kind of touch on them real quick because we don't want to belabor the point of the outfield, but just some guys out there. Joey Gallo, Andrew Benintendi are realistically the options if you need a guy that can play a corner outfield spot. Center field, you got Nimmo and Kiermaier, who we already talked about. There's really nobody else behind them that would be a legitimate upgrade. And then in right field, you got, Will Myers or Michael Conforto. But there is one name that it's not someone, this would be more if the Dodgers were, let's just say they spent like on a big time shortstop and then they're like, oh, yeah, we need, kind of somebody else. Um, and maybe this is a guy that they could help turn around or even a guy that they sign maybe to a minor league deal with hopes of kind of fixing him or turning him around a little bit. And it's Aristides Aquino. He's the big outfielder that if you remember on the Reds, he's 6'4", so he's pretty big. He came up and he's had some decent power numbers. I mean, he's hit 41 home runs in about 686 career plate appearances. So over the course of an entire season, let's just say he was a everyday player. He's hit 41 home runs. The bad part is that he's only hit 211 with an on base under 300, an OPS overall of 70 or OPS plus overall of 85, which is you know lower. 100 is average for OPS plus. He's at 85, but it's a guy that you can see them signing maybe minor league deal, invite. He becomes minor league depth, and maybe they can make some tweaks. The Reds are a team that have actually had a pretty successful run of getting guys, um, building up their numbers in terms of power because they play at that stadium where a lot of home runs occur, and then being able to trade and get value for them. They did it with Suarez and Winker. They've done it in the past with other guys, Brandon Drury this past season as well. So the fact that he, couldn't make it on the Reds and the Reds are a bad team, uh, probably not the best sign, but just a name that I wanted to throw out there. Like I said, he's a big guy. He has the power. If they can just find a couple things, tweak a couple things, make him just average hitter, but with that power, and that's someone that you can, have some use for, even if it's your fifth outfielder on the roster or sixth outfielder on the roster, a guy that only comes up if some guys get injured. But if he can spend some time with Dodger coaches, figure something out, maybe unlock something in that swing. Like I said, he's got the power over the course of what he can do. Um, and yeah, I mean, if you can get a guy with 20, 25 home run power on a minor league deal, even if he can't hit, that's still a pretty decent deal. But if you can find a guy like that and you can tweak a couple things, makes a little bit of sense. So just a name to remember and look out for. Aristides Aquino, realistically, probably won't sign with the Dodgers. He'll sign with the team like the Marlins or somebody who are trying to find power or production at a very, very cheap cost that maybe aren't expected to compete, and they have that there's teams out there that can give this guy 300 400 at bats, or at least the ability to try and figure it out and hope that he runs into more than a few pitches. The Dodgers don't necessarily, I guess the Dodgers could have that luxury. They did run out Cody Bellinger for 3 years where he was hitting well below uh MLB average, but probably not a guy, but just a guy to kind of think about and say, hey, this is a guy the Dodgers could potentially sign and try to make something out of, similar, not 100%, but similar to like picking up Joey Gallo last year. Obviously, Joey Gallo had way more success in his career and was a much better player overall, but at the time was struggling pretty bad when Dodgers did get him. It ended up working out for a little bit, but didn't end up working out the way they thought or the way they wanted. So, yeah, we're gonna cut it a little short here because, like I said, we had a little bit of a time crunch, and we had a lot of things going on our end. But thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. Check out Locked On Sports Today for your second listen of the day. They're available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Simply by searching for Locked On Sports Today, you can search for Locked On Dodgers in those places as well to find us. Whereas also you can find us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snider. I'm at Vince Samperio. DMs are open on all those accounts if you need to get a hold of us. You can also get a hold of us via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be with us. When you get in your car, or if you're at home, text my advice play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.